Planner Training Session 9, Adding a Risk. So here we are in our new blank risk register. So if we've come into a normal blank planner file and it's a new one, there'll probably be all three tabs showing, and that would have come in on plan, and we've simply clicked on the risk tab to move into the risk side. It may be that you don't have the other two tabs showing and it's just a risk register, and to show that I'm just going to go and do that now, which is done here from Program View. So it should just be a risk register, and it may be that that condition is locked as well using passwords. So what we're going to look at here is adding new risks to our risk register. If this is the only video you watch about risks and you're just contributing to the risk register, this is the one you need to see, how to create a new risk. Simply add item here, and you're given the form for a new risk. And this is set up to be aligned with management of risk, Prince 2 approaches to risk as well. And we're asked to record the cause, event and effect for the risk. In many cases people don't feel they know quite enough about it or understand that concept enough to record cause, event and effect, in which case they just put it in a description to describe their risk. So I'm just going to try and do that here. So we're going to put in our cause, like that, and we can then, if we want to, choose to give it our own identifier. We can do that, otherwise it's going to automatically code up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. as we progress down the screen. We could give it some sort of code as well to identify it, such as external, internal, high value, etc. Some sort of classification that we can sort and order and search by and filter by as well. And we're then asked to fill in the category and the status. So the category is from a pick list here. We have standard set of categories. These are the standard set in our default risk template. But you can in fact alter these yourself, assuming it's not password locked, using the file lookups, manage lookups element. So I'm simply going to pick one from here. We'll pick legislation, and I can pick a status. Now it defaults to open, but you do need to pick something if you want to change it. For now we're going to use just open. And then if we knew the event in effect, we could fill that in here. So the idea is that the risk could be broken down. We've got a cause, a thing that might make the thing happen, what triggers it, what event might actually force it to come into being, and what the effect would then be of that risk should it occur. But for now we're just going to record cause in a sort of generic way. And then we can use owner here. Now the owner here is from a list, and actually if you're using a plan as well, it's the same resource list that you've generated in your plan side, so the same names will exist. You can either type a name in or you can pick one from the list. And then we have tag, which is an optional field, again for filtering and searching on your risk data. And then we have date registered, so it's picked up today's date and time. We could of course alter that if we wanted to. Now that is the absolutely bare minimum that we would need to put in on our risk, so let's do that in the same way as we did with the tasks. We can either create and close if we're just adding one, or we can create and add another, as we're going to do here. And you see what it's reminding me here is that the inherent risk rating is 0. So we have a rating for our risk. We can see it up here. Inherent and residual. We'll come on to talk about residual in a minute. But the inherent risk rating is the rating for this risk at the time when we first identify it. You can save it with 0, but that's a bit unusual because that means it's not risky, but we're identifying it as a risk. So I'm not going to save it. In fact, I'm going to come on to the next tab, which is inherent risk, and calculate my risk. And that's done by simply moving the sliders for the three areas: impact, how significant is this risk going to be, what's it going to actually cause as an effect, and probability, how likely is it to happen, and the proximity, how close is it to happening. The closer it is, the less time we have to deal with it. And each of these sliders, as you move them along, you'll see here at the end the option that we're selecting changes and the number associated with it. And it's the combination of these numbers multiplied together which gives us our risk rating. So we'll see as I move the slider, the number here changing and the calculation changing. Obviously, as we have a 0 in the calculation still, that's remaining at 0. But if I said the impact of this was low, we know the proximity is long term currently, so that's 2 times 1 is 2. As I start to move the probability slider, we see that brings a calculation into play here until we've got something that we think gives a fair representation of the risk. Now these elements, the slider positions, what they're called, and the values associated with them, is all managed again from the lookups and can be changed for your risk register, assuming it's not password protected. And so these allow you to, if you want to, customize them for your particular organization. But here we're just simply adding them, and we pick the slider for what we think is reasonable for this particular risk. If it's actually going to occur quite soon, then of course that has a big bearing on the significance of the risk. And the last thing here is that we can, if we want to, identify what the cost of this risk might be should it occur. And this is very useful because it allows us to monetize our risks, and with the probability figures come up with some sort of budget for how significant the risk profile of this project might be. So I'm going to put in a figure for the likely cost of this risk, and I can now create and close or create and add another. If I create and add another, we'll see our risk behind the scenes showing here now, and again I can come in and add my next risk. And I'm going to go through exactly the same sort of pattern again. It's a pretty simple thing to do. This time I'm going to give it some sort of code, and I'm going to put in a different owner to before. And I'm going to come and do the same sort of thing again with my inherent risk calculation. There we go, and create and close, and I'm building up my risk register here. So adding a new risk is pretty straightforward to do. We can see here that they've all been added. They're now displaying in our risk charts at the top, and we'll talk much more about analysis of our risks later on, and filtering and sorting and using views, etc. But basically the addition of a risk is straightforward. In the next training session we're going to talk about working with that risk now it's there, managing responses, updating it as it goes, etc. And then we'll go on to look at analysis, working with views, etc. Okay, thanks.